Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. This press availability is an effort to allow the media to have additional information on the bringing of charges against defendant Tyrone Garcell Tunnell in reference to the double stabbing that occurred very recently and the homicide of a single security guard in an important retail establishment in Philadelphia. This is a tragic but also remarkable story of some excellent police work that was done. It is a story that obviously is of interest to the city of Philadelphia. This is a city we love, that we care about. We are in a holiday season when people should feel that they can go out and they can shop and they can enjoy everything Center City, Philadelphia has to offer without fear. And while we know that much of the crime data is positive, there is nothing positive about this experience. So we think it is very important to be as transparent as we can and share all the information that it is appropriate to share and that is available with reference to this incident. I think it is fair to remark that several of the people up here started this morning at 8 o'clock in a room with me, and we were talking about making sure that crimes against retail, crimes against store owners, people who work in stores and commercial establishments do not happen in the city of Philadelphia. It's work that has been ongoing now, actually, for a couple of years and even more intensively over the last few months. I feel like we have an excellent collaboration and have some pretty good ideas for how to make things better as we move forward. And yet, in the middle of all that, this terrible incident occurred. That work will go on, and I'm grateful to all the people standing with me who are participating and have encouraged that kind of work. Let me introduce some of them, if I may. We have with us Robert Listenby, who is a first assistant DA here, ADA Joanne Pescatore, who is the chief of our homicide and non-fatal shooting unit in the DA's office and has spent quite a bit of time dealing with this case. ADA Pescatore has some specifics to offer. We have with us ADA Kimberly Essick, that's E-S-A-C-K, who's the chief of our Economic Crimes Division. Shakina DeShazor, that's S-H-A-K-I-N-A, DeShazor, D-E-S-H-A-Z-O-R, is here, the chief of our DAO's CARES unit, which works intensively with the families of homicide victims in the first 45 days. Andrea Rivera, peer crisis responder from the CARES unit, is here. Joseph Smiley, also with that unit. We have Police Commissioner John Stanford with us today of the Philadelphia Police Department, who has been heavily involved in these efforts to make sure that our retail establishments are safe, and we appreciate all of his cooperation and collaboration. We have Leslie Richards here, who is the General Manager and CEO of SEPTA, who has also been, for many months, working closely with us so that we can all try to bring a greater level of confidence in the public safety on SEPTA. And by the way, SEPTA did a fabulous job in terms of not only tracking this defendant as he fled the crime, but also assisting in his apprehension. We have Charles Lawson, who is the police chief of the SEPTA Transit Police, and thank you, Chief Lawson, for all the excellent work that was done on this case. Captain Sean Thornton of the Civil Enforcement Unit of the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office, Pennsylvania State Representative of the 182nd Legislative District, Ben Waxman, is here. I know that Chairman Curtis Jones of the Public Safety Committee of the Philadelphia City Council is trying to get here. He's still in the middle of a very important hearing right now, may or may not make it. We have Michael Driscoll, Philadelphia Council Member for the 6th District here. We have Ketsi Losada, Philadelphia Council Member for the 7th District here. Jim Harity, Philadelphia Council Member at Large, is with us. Kendra Brooks is likewise at the hearing that has detained Councilmember Jones, but we're hopeful that she can make it. And we have Philadelphia Councilmember-elect Nicholas O'Rourke, who will be a member at large, will be sworn in very soon, but is already on the team in terms of trying to make sure that this city thrives and that people are safe when they go about their business this holiday. It is my honor to introduce as the first, second, and third speaker here. First, Police Commissioner John Stanford, Second, SEPTA General Manager and CEO Leslie Richards. And third, SEPTA Police Chief Charles Lawson. After they have completed their comments, which I understand will be relatively brief, then I will come back up to introduce the next speakers.
Thank you, Mr. DA. And as the district attorney alluded to, this is an example of that collaborative work. One of the things that we are striving towards to make the city safer and to be able to hold folks accountable for the criminal actions that they take part in. And so, as you know, yesterday, just to give you some brief background on the events that bring us here today, yesterday morning, just after 11 a.m., 6 district officers responded to the 1300 block of Market Street to a Center City department store for a report of a stabbing. Upon arriving, they located 2 employees who performed the security duties for the store, both suffering from stab wounds. Both of those individuals were transported to Jefferson Hospital by police, and unfortunately, one of the individuals was pronounced at 11:19 yesterday morning. The suspect involved in this incident originally entered the store before 11 a.m., attempted to take what we know a few knit caps from the location without paying for the merchandise, was confronted by the security staff, at which point the security staff allowed the individual to leave after retrieving the merchandise. This person, the defendant, then returned to the location approximately 15 minutes later, which was just after 11, and confronted both security staff, leading to stabbing both security staff. And as I said, one was pronounced at 11:19. The suspect then fled from the location and entered the subway system. And I will turn it over to Chief Lawson to explain in terms of how SEPTA participated in that process, which ultimately led to the arrest. But just good collaborative work, good communication between Philadelphia police officers and SEPTA police officers, ultimately leading to a quick arrest, a quick apprehension of the individual before he can bring harm to anyone else. And then again, the collaborative work between the district attorney's office and our department throughout this process to ensure that this individual is charged accordingly. And so I'll step aside at this point and allow SEPTA to continue.
So thank you, DA Krasner, Commissioner. On SEPTA's behalf, I want to say that our thoughts are with the victims, their families, and loved ones during this very difficult time. I want to thank Chief Lawson and our transit police for taking immediate action yesterday that led to the arrest of the suspect. We have over 30,000 security cameras on our system, and we often say, if you commit a crime on SEPTA or are near SEPTA, it will be on video, and you will be held accountable. This incident shows how this technology, as well as how the officers who utilize it, have an impact beyond just the SEPTA system. We work closely with all of our law enforcement partners, and yesterday is an example of how effective those efforts can be. Within minutes of yesterday's tragic incident, SEPTA police were able to identify the suspect and track him in real time as he attempted to get away on the Market-Frankford line. Our cameras captured him discarding the knife and boarding the train. And just minutes later, SEPTA police were able to take him into custody at the Somerset station. Chief Lawson has created a new virtual patrol unit to monitor cameras and help with responses to incidents. Along with adding more patrol officers to the department, this is helping with our efforts to identify potential trouble spots and put our officers in the best possible position to protect our customers and our employees. SEPTA is committed to being a part of the solution to the challenges our city faces. Again, I want to express our heartfelt condolences to the family of the security guard who was murdered. I'm grateful to our dedicated transit police for their efforts to get the suspect into custody. And I'd like to turn it over to our police chief, Chief Lawson, to fill you in with more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. So I want to echo Commissioner Stanford's comments. What a tremendous example of coordination, partnership between the SEPTA Police Department, Philadelphia Police Department. Increasing public safety in this city is a shared responsibility. We're committed to working with our partners in the city to bring safer streets, safer schools, safer public transit to Philadelphia. To that end, we're committed to bringing the full weight of our collective law enforcement resources to bear to keep dangerous criminals off the street. To that end, we were able essentially to receive information from the Philadelphia Police Department very quickly after this incident occurred, and were able to track with a group who in real time track conditions of the system, track this offender essentially from the doorstep of Macy's into the 13th Street station and onto an eastbound train. That time, our technology has advanced to the point where we can track in real time, go look live into the train. We're able to identify the offender in this case sitting on an eastbound train while our individuals organized an arrest and intercepted that individual down the line. And so we're pleased in the aftermath of a terrible tragedy to play a small role in bringing a dangerous criminal to justice. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce 88 Joanne Pescatore, who is the chief of our Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit, to talk about not so much the policing, which has been covered, but to talk about the prosecutorial aspects of this case.
Thank you, Larry Krasner. Good afternoon. Tyrone Garcell Tunnell, the charges that were approved for him. The victim was Eric Harrison, that was the decedent in this case. He was the first security guard that was in fact stabbed. He was stabbed in the neck area. He died very shortly thereafter. The charges for him were murder generally. The second victim, Christian Mitchell, the second security guard that was stabbed, that came to the aid of Eric Harrison, who tackled the defendant after he stabbed Mr. Harrison, who brought him down. He was stabbed in the process. He's currently in critical but stable condition. He actually had to have surgery as a result of his wounds. Charges for him were attempted murder, aggravated assault, simple assault, recklessly endangering another person, possession of an instrument of a crime, tampering with evidence, and retail theft as a felony of the third degree. As the DA and as the police commissioner said, the defendant was in the process of stealing some hats. The Macy store has an unbelievable security system. Thank God they do. They were able to track this particular person through the store. The security guards intercepted him before he made the street. There was a tussle in the foyer for those hats. The male left. Mr. Tunnell left the store. Approximately 13 minutes later, he came back in the store and confronted those security guards for gripping him up and for treating him the way they did. The one security guard was in the men's department. The other security guard was face on with him. It's at that point that the defendant pulls out a knife. It's a switchblade knife. There's a young mother and her child walking by at the time. He approaches that security guard. He then sees the other security guard that I guess he really had the beef with. He goes after him and stabs him once in the neck. That security guard falls and the other security guard comes to his aid. It's then that you see the defendant get up, pick up a shoe from the victim that had fallen off, ran down the steps of the SEPTA station, sat down on a bench, threw that knife away. We recovered that knife and put on the shoe of the victim. I want to thank the Philadelphia Police Department, the homicide detectives. Detective Lucky did a phenomenal compilation in this case, and of course, the SEPTA police, for without them and their ingenuity and their help and their cameras and their quick way to get to this particular defendant on that train, he didn't get away. And so those are the charges. He's currently being held without bail. He will have a preliminary hearing sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you, ADA Pescator. We've spoken now about policing and prosecution. There is no higher priority than support for victims and survivors, especially at this phase in a case. And therefore, I'd like to call forward the DAO's Victim Support Services team, First Assistant Robert Listenby, Shakina DeShazor, Andrea Rivera, and Joseph Smiley, who will discuss the DAO's response to family survivors and impacted parties in connection with this incident and also in general.
Thank you very much, District Attorney Krasner. One of the assignments that District Attorney Krasner has given me is to oversee the Victim Support Services Division. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Joseph Smiley, who will provide the report about victims. Mr. Smiley.
Thank you, DA Krasner and Bob Listenby. My name is Joseph Smiley. I'm with Philadelphia Cares, and this is my coworker, Andrea Rivera. We're both peer crisis responders. I've been with Philadelphia Cares for about 1.5 years, and I just want to inform you all what it is that Philadelphia Cares actually does. We work closely with families to provide support services such as victims' compensation, grief counseling referrals, as well as relocation referrals, among many other types of referrals. Peer crisis responders were deployed to the incident yesterday and arrived around 11:45 a.m. Peer crisis responders met with management and employees. They provided trauma-informed support to employees who were traumatized by the incident. Peer crisis responders gave out brochures, provided information about the CARES program, and also provided each person with their contact information. Peer crisis responders remained available to support additional staff or customers that may have needed support. Andrea and myself were deployed to Jefferson Hospital and arrived shortly thereafter. Myself and Andrea provided support and services to the surviving family members, and a follow-up call was made this morning to the victim's mother to assist her with any immediate needs. Peer crisis responders provided her with requested information, and the PCR assigned to the family will follow up with more support later today to assist her with any next steps.
All right, and it is now my pleasure to introduce a team of elected officials who are standing together, united, and in a collaborative spirit to make sure that it is understood that at all levels, law enforcement, government, and community are working together to make us safe this holiday season. Safe as civilians, safe in our jobs, safe in our travel, safe in our shopping, to make us safe. Sadly, a couple of them are still tied up doing the good work that they do all the time, but I would like to call forward to speak as they wish State Representative Ben Waxman, as well as Councilmember Kurt Jones, if he makes it, Councilmember Brooks, if she makes it, Councilmember Losada, who is here, Councilmember Harity, who is here, Councilmember Driscoll, Councilmember Driscoll. Good. Thank you. Who is here. And we have Councilmember-elect O'Rourke, who, as far as I'm concerned, is close enough to being on council, and he is here as well. Please, if you'd all come forward and share the microphone as you wish.
Thank you, Mr. District Attorney. I'm going to be brief. The first thing that I just want to say is my name is Ben Waxman. I represent the 182nd District, which encompasses where this incident took place, as well as much of downtown Philadelphia. I just want to say to the family and the friends and the victims of this incident how horrified the Center City community was by what happened. Our hearts are with you. We know that our community and our neighborhood is buttressed by thousands of people from all over the region, the city, who come to downtown every single day to work and to provide the kind of environment that people want to live in. And so this has hit our community hard, and certainly our thoughts and our prayers are with the victims. The second thing that I just want to say is how grateful I am to the law enforcement officials who are arrayed behind me. Others have already said much about what occurred, but I just want to emphasize the teamwork and responsiveness from not only the Philadelphia Police Department, the SEPTA Police, the DA's office, SEPTA, the agency as a whole. It's that kind of teamwork and people collaborating that is going to make Philadelphia a place where people feel safe. The final thing that I just want to say as a member of the Philadelphia House delegation and a member of the majority in Harrisburg in the State House, we in the Philadelphia delegation are absolutely committed to working with our law enforcement partners to bring more resources to Philadelphia to make this a safer place to work, to play and to live. And specifically, the conversations that we are having, which are just in the beginning, with the department and with others behind me, are about what kind of technology is needed, what kind of funding for technology is needed, so that our law enforcement partners have the tools that they need to be able to respond to these types of situations. Yes, there were material witnesses in this case, but fundamentally, to me, from my understanding, is this arrest occurred because of a lot of footage and camera footage and technology that aided law enforcement in that pursuit. So those are the conversations that we are having. What can we do to make sure that SEPTA, the Philadelphia Police Department, the DA's office, all of these law enforcement agencies have the funding necessary to use the modern technology that is required to solve cases in the modern urban environment. And so I just want to again say thank you to the DA's office, thank you to the police department, SEPTA police, all of the law enforcement who have been involved in this case. We see you, we appreciate you, and we're so thankful for your work.
Hello, everyone. Councilman Jim Harity. My heart goes out to the security guard's family. I mean, it's Christmas time. This is ridiculous. DA Krasner said we were meeting this morning at 8 o'clock talking about this stuff, and we have been meeting every Tuesday at 8 o'clock to discuss this. We are not taking any of the crime that's going on in the city of Philadelphia lightly. We have a partnership right now between us on council, the DA's office, the police department, and SEPTA, and we are going to continue to do that to make Philadelphia a safer place. So again, I ask you to please just keep that family in your prayers, and thank you.
Well, I'm Councilmember Mike Driscoll, and I am deeply saddened by the event that took place yesterday for the retail business and the family of, the workers that were just trying to earn a living in this holiday season to have a wonderful holiday season for their family. But I will tell you this, it is a tale of two cities. The media does, as they should, promote what's happening in the city. But what you don't see, that we see every day, is a lot of good things that are happening in the city. The Christmas Village, the Holiday Village, whatever you want to portray it, that's on Love Park and on the apron of City Hall, is a wonderful, vibrant, festive holiday experience. And despite what happened yesterday, I still intend to bring my 5 children, my wife, and my neighbors here in the next 2 weeks to shop and to make sure that they know that I believe that this city is still safe. And I believe it is. As Councilman Harity just said, we've been meeting with District Attorney Krasner, not today at 8 o'clock, which we did, not because of what happened yesterday, but because of Councilwoman Lozada, Councilman Squilla, and Councilman Harity and I have formed, is this task force that says that we can and we will do better. Because I believe it is the tale of two cities. We have the city of Philadelphia, that is the birthplace of America, that in 2026 is going to be the focal point of democracy on the world stage. And I am not shying away from people coming to Center City, because I do believe that Leslie Richards, D.A. Krasner, Commissioner Stanford, and the team that I have behind me have our backs, and we're not going to let the bad guys imprint the bad stuff in Philly, because our better days are here and our better days are coming.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by just offering my condolences to the victim's family. And I'd also like to thank everyone who is involved in ensuring that justice is served. I'd like to express gratitude to the District Attorney's Office for opening their doors and starting a conversation. The work has always been happening, but I think that where we were missing some points was that we were not communicating with one another. And so, as you've heard several times, we've been meeting discussing retail theft. Commercial corridors are the economic engine of many neighborhoods, including districts like mine. And some of our retailers experience this type of incident in their communities and fail to dial 911 for many misconceptions. And so I will share and I will ask that those businesses who have experienced situations like this one or similar, I encourage you to reach out and report what is happening along your commercial corridors. It is important to the work. It is how we will be able to track incidents and those who are perpetrators who are conducting this type of business. And it will be the only way we will be able to create safer neighborhoods. And so again, I thank District Attorney Krasner and everyone involved in ensuring that we move Philadelphia forward in a safe way. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your comments. I would like to echo Councilmember Lozada's encouragement to retailers that if you do have a crime committed on your premises, whether it is retail theft or any other crime, please report it. Please make that call to the Philadelphia Police. Let's get it on record as much as possible. Let's make arrests where we can, but let's get it on record. Let's save the video. Let's make sure we know what happens. One of the most important things that can occur under those circumstances is we can start to accumulate information showing that a particular individual is a prolific offender, is going from retail establishment to retail establishment, committing the same kinds of crimes all over again. Well, you can't do that. We can't do that. PPD can't do that if you don't report it. So that's point one. Point two, some of those individuals who are committing these crimes may have an open bench warrant. They may have an open arrest warrant. They may be on bail for something else. Well, you know what happens when people commit new crimes when they're on bail? They get that bail revoked. So these are reasons why I am requesting and respectfully encouraging all of you who own stores or work in commercial establishments, I'm encouraging you to make that call to 911. We are all going to try to be there to support you one way or another, accumulating the information, investigating the information. PPD is going to be there to do everything they can to bring these individuals to justice, and we will have a better set of evidence in addition. But if you don't call, then it's almost as if it never happened, and there can be some very bad consequences. Now, having said that, I do want to thank all of my law enforcement partners, government partners, and others who are up here for the remarkable work that they have done in this case, for the remarkable levels of cooperation, collaboration, brainstorming together, thinking together, trying to come up with new ways to do a better job with crimes that are committed in commercial establishments. I also want to make sure you understand we are very strongly committed to the vigorous prosecution of this individual for what is in fact a heinous crime and a very, very tragic and disturbing crime, not only against the young man who died, but also against this young man who, as I understand it, underwent surgery today and whose health has been very seriously affected by all of this. I know there's a store full of workers over there who are traumatized by this. I know it because I was there, just like most of law enforcement was there. I know it because our Victim Witness Support Services team was there offering services to them. You cannot be a part of this kind of an experience, whether it's as a shopper, and I spoke to a shopper today, or someone who does security, and I know that Nick O'Rourke ran into a bunch of people who do security who spoke to him about how they were impacted by it yesterday. You can't be close to this kind of thing without it affecting you. It is incredibly damaging. So I want you to understand how committed we are to the vigorous prosecution of this case and to making sure that the survivor and the survivors of this incident, those who witnessed it or were otherwise affected by it and have been deeply impacted by this violent crime, will have every kind of support that we can provide. We are now ready to go to Q&A. Obviously, any questions ideally will be for everybody up here, not just for me. But I have a list of names here. In the event that I miss you, okay? In the event that I miss you, then please let me know. I will not walk away from the microphone until I have stopped to check to make sure that I haven't missed anyone. While we often call on camera operators, where I have both a camera operator and someone who is a reporter, I'll be calling on the reporter solely. All right, in no particular order, starting with Channel 3 CBS, Josh Sanders. Do you have a question, sir?
Mr. Krasner, when you look at the collaboration that you say is taking place, how are you going to continue to measure that going forward? You're looking at resources for whether it's funding or things that all of you have touched on.
I think a lot of us would measure it in different overlapping ways. One of the ways that we are looking at it is there are some new things in play that have really never been done in the city of Philadelphia, and I'll be brief about this. We have requested City Council to provide additional funding for a task force. Most of what that task force would be doing would be focusing on prolific retail thieves and also on the fences. The fences, in other words, those who deal in stolen goods, who provide a marketplace for people who steal to take their things. The world has changed. Retail theft is different than it was. You now have, and I won't say where, but you have a warehouse or warehouses that are full of stolen goods, and those goods are sold on the internet to the tune of millions of dollars. And other of those goods are sold through an illegal wholesale market to smaller stores that may or may not be aware of the fact that they're stolen and are then offered for retail sale again in those locations. We didn't have the internet as a marketplace 20 years ago. It was a different world. Well, we need to adapt. We need to change. As the world changes, we need to be able to keep up with what technology offers for good and for bad. And that is part of the reason that we have sought some funding from City Council for a task force in the DA's office that would work heavily and specifically not only on the prolific retail theft offenders, but also on those kinds of fences. All right, Channel 6 ABC, Annie McCormick. Hi.
Can we talk about the retail theft policy, what was instituted in 2018, under 500, only a summary offense? What, have you changed that now? And looking back at that, do you regret having it under 500? Do you think that that helped the thieves to get more? And they were, it's also my understanding that the charging unit at the time wasn't looking at past history. So they weren't looking to see if a suspect had already received numerous summary offenses.
So, I do think there's a lot of misinformation on this point, so I want to be clear about it. It has always been the policy of the DA's office that we prosecute people who steal, that we prosecute people who commit retail theft. If it is $1 or 50 cents, we prosecute that. We prosecute, consistent with the statute, we prosecute summary offenses, at times misdemeanor offenses, at times felony offenses. We do all three of those things. We have applied that policy in a slightly different way. But let's cut to the chase. Anyone who tells you that we're not prosecuting theft of less than $500 is misinformed. That has never, ever, ever, ever been true. Summary offenses can put you in jail for 90 days. That's not a very fun place to be, even with a summary offense. The difference is that unlike prior administrations, and this has been done in several cities, unlike prior administrations, we didn't automatically maximize the gradation or level of the offense. Where we thought it was appropriate, even if we could have gone to a misdemeanor for some of these offenses, we would keep it as a summary. The larger context is this. Our policy was sound then, it is sound now, but there are more details to it that were laid out. Those details include, if you're a prolific offender, we are going to charge all the higher levels. Those details also include that where we see a pattern, you're doing it multiple places, we're going to put all those cases together. It's called consolidation. So you may be just facing one trial for having, or a single day in court for having hit all these different stores and violated all these different stores. The policy is sound for a variety of reasons, including the reality that a lot of people who are not professional and not prolific retail thieves, but are involved, let's say, once in a period of 2 years with retail theft, they need a solution that's more than a jail cell, because they're just going to do it again if we don't deal with addiction. They're just going to do it again if we don't deal with the reality that they are unhoused. So no, I don't think that there is an issue there, but I do think that what we can do in terms of this policy, which I consider solid, is that we can bring out more of the details about how it's actually applied and more of the things that we're trying to do to make it easier for people who actually are store owners or work in those premises to prosecute. It has always been hard to prosecute these cases. A lot of times the witnesses are unable to show up for business-related reasons, among others. And one of the things that has been discussed in a collaborative way is how can we make it easier and less of a burden on store owners so we can have successful outcomes with these cases. Cristel Mora from 10 NBC Telemundo.
Wait, can I have a clarification on one part of that?
Yes, please.
So in the time that you initially instituted it now, so you have made changes? Are the changes more on like the charging unit side then?
I wouldn't say we've made changes. The policy as stated 45 days into our administration is correct, but there are a lot of more details to it. The policy was stated very simply. It's correct, it's accurate, but there are a lot more details that are being applied. I think it's fair to say we probably should put that in writing and make it available to the public, which is something we discussed earlier, and we will be doing that.
And when you said maximize, you're talking about looking back at past histories?
Among other things, yes. All right. Cristel Mora.
¿Podría, por favor, decirnos en español cuáles fueron los esfuerzos que permitieron la captura del sospechoso de manera rápida y pues un breve resumen de todo lo que se ha acordado el día de hoy con respecto a los cargos que va a recibir el sospechoso?
Ok. Estamos aquí para explicar que la oficina del fiscal de Filadelfia tiene cargos de homicidio en contra este señor que mató al joven en esa tienda. El defendiente se llama Tyrone Garcell Tunnell. Hay otra víctima, un segundo víctima que sufrió heridas y ha tenido servicios médicos en el hospital también. Y tenemos cargos de tratar de matar a ese señor además.
Muy bien, sobre los esfuerzos de la policía y la policía de SEPTA, ¿podría hablarnos un poco sobre cómo se ayudaron ambas instituciones para poder capturarlo rápidamente?
Sí, claro que sí. Estamos aquí juntos con la policía de SEPTA, además de la policía de la ciudad de Filadelfia, para explicar que ellos y nosotros en la oficina del fiscal trabajamos juntos y a base de unos esfuerzos increíbles por esa policía, tenían la capacidad de seguir el asesino, de ver lo que él hacía, incluso disparando o tirando el cuchillo, y de hacer un arresto por medio de las cámaras y otros métodos que tienen con SEPTA. Fue un esfuerzo excelente de parte de todos los policías. Okay.
¿Han tenido ya contacto con la familia de la víctima mortal?
Sí. Estamos tratando de asistir a las familias de las víctimas, además de esos que trabajaban ese día en esa tienda para darles cualquier servicio que necesitan. All right, thank you. Let's see. Diana Durante.
Can we talk a little bit about murder generally here? Because the way that it was explained, it appears as though he's out of the store. He's not being charged. He comes back looking to find these guys. He's got a beef with them. He wants to find them. He's got 2 knives. Why not a first-degree murder charge here? Because the mother of the victim is afraid that there will be excuses made for this man's behavior and that he won't be put to justice.
So let me just say this, and then I'll call up ADA Pescator. General murder includes first-degree murder. Murder generally, I know these are technical terms, so it is confusing, but murder generally means, in essence, first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and voluntary manslaughter, and involuntary manslaughter are all charged. So this absolutely is a case where we have charged first-degree murder in this case, and you certainly raise a point about his conduct that suggests a very deliberate effort to do harm. When you leave a place, get a knife, go back to that place, and then run at someone and stab him, we believe that's very, very strong evidence of a premeditation and an effort to actually kill another person. But I will bring up 88 Pescator in case she has further comment.
And a knife or two knives?
I'm going to, first of all, talk to your first question. So generally, when we charge murder, if a first-degree murder is warranted, it's always charged, and it always has been charged as murder generally. Sometimes that includes first, second, and third-degree murder. In this particular case, it would be first and third-degree murder, and that's just the way it's always been charged. And the DA is correct. There is a lot of evidence of a specific intent here, and that can happen in an instant. Premeditation, it can happen in the blink of an eye. So this man leaves the store for 13 minutes, and he returns again, specifically looking for those two security guards who escorted him out, taking a knife and plunging into a vital part of the victim's body. All parts of the jury charge that a jury would hear in a murder prosecution. With regard to a second knife, I'm not going to comment on that. There was a second knife recovered. We do not know if that had anything to do with this case or not, but there was a second knife that was recovered by someone on the street and given to an officer who then went inside the Macy's to discover that there was in fact a stabbing.
Just to clarify on what you mentioned earlier about going after prolific retail theft, that's a newer policy that's in effect now, and would this individual fall under that 2015 to 2023, 200 different citations, arrest charges, accusations of theft? Does that fall under that?
So let me try to answer that from the beginning. We have been going over prolific offenders for quite some time. It involves a certain amount of effort, and there are even better communications between law enforcement and us about which people are. Sometimes you can see that on a criminal record, sometimes you can't, because there are people who do it a lot but don't get caught a lot. So it is something we have been working on, but we are open to trying to do a better job every day. The more we can get information from retailers that helps us to identify those people, from law enforcement that helps us to identify those people, then we can find the ones who have been caught before, and also the ones who have not been caught so many times before. This defendant's record, which I did review, contains a variety of different crimes. Certainly there are a number of retail thefts in there, but those crimes include drug dealing, robbery, I think it was a burglary charge that was included in there. Would he meet the definition? He probably would, but I must admit I'm not sitting here looking at it in front of me right now.
What kind of knife?
For the record, it's a switchblade knife, so like he popped it open. You can see him clearly on video. He actually takes it from his pocket and flips it open, and that's how it was recovered.
All right, I have, let me see, for 29 Fox, I have Tina Hogate and Shawnette Wilson here. Do you have any questions? Okay.
We talked a lot about the importance of people continuing to come to the city and how much growth we're expecting in the city, all these great activities and things that we offer. How do we expect to retain people to do important jobs like this as we look forward at bigger things that we are trying to do here in the city? What assurance are we offering them to continue doing these jobs that they will be effective?
Well, certainly I can speak for myself. I think there are people who are better situated perhaps to say a lot more than I could say. But I can tell you that everyone I know who is standing up here is completely dedicated to people not only being safe, but feeling safe when we come into the city. I'm not going to dwell on it, but there is no question that the actual criminological data for the year shows an enormous increase in safety when it comes to homicides of all types. When it comes to violent crime, you're talking about all but one category of violent crime that Philadelphia Police Department puts on its publicly available database being significantly down. Violent crime overall at this point this year being down over 7% in the city of Philadelphia. But those are numbers. Numbers are one thing, and then you have names, and you have faces, and you have people who have suffered terribly, like these two people, one of whom was killed and one of whom was injured. So I understand these feelings and how everyone wishes this had not happened, and it may make people afraid, and I'm genuinely sorry. that that is going on. But we have to be smart enough and good enough to be able to hold two things. Number one, that this is totally unacceptable, and that we have to do everything we possibly can to help these victims and prevent it in the future. But number two, that there is a context here. There is some good news that goes along with this terrible news. And I believe that Philadelphians are capable of holding two true things at the same time. All right, Kristen Johansson, KYW.
So following up a little bit of Annie's question, the policy that you actually have on your website just states charge and dispose of retail theft cases as summary offenses unless the volume of the items stolen in particular case exceeds $500 or where the defendant has a long history of theft and retail theft convictions. So getting it as plain and as simple for everybody else, how has that changed from 2018 to now?
That hasn't changed, but there are more details. We are doing a much better job of getting together information on prolific offenders at the time when they first come into the system. You know, we have since that time identified the reality of what's happening with retail theft in terms of these internet-based sales schemes, in terms of these efforts to resell stolen goods as wholesale to smaller stores within the city. All of that has been coming together, and some of it, frankly, was not known at that time. So I would say, yes, and. That is the policy. But and, there are a lot more specifics. I think, you know, we've been down the road a little bit. We know where some of the landmarks are, and some of those things we can add in a more specific way and in writing if people find that helpful.
So some cases are still being disposed if they're under $500? Because that's what this...
Some cases are still being charged as summaries if they're under $500. Understanding the statute always called for charging some cases as misdemeanors.
Where the summary offenses are tickets, right?
Summary offenses are criminal offenses that can be charged by the police department. They have exclusive charging authority for those cases. It looks like a large ticket, as you said. It looks like a half-size piece of paper. And once the police make their decision to charge a summary offense in that fashion, that case will go to a courtroom where a Philadelphia assistant district attorney will prosecute those cases.
But then they also can't really, they can't, because of this policy, they can't necessarily get it to be more than that because it's not $500. So like state law says that if it's retail theft, no matter what the amount is, that's what the amount is that you would maybe be charged with retail theft, but because of your policy, like, does that put police, I'm gonna say, a little bit in a limbo of going back and forth between, because your policy says $500 and I'm trying to just be clear about this, $500 and less.
No, I don't think police are in limbo at all. They always have complete power on their own, regardless of what I think, to bring summary charges, which can put somebody in jail for 90 days. If they are seeking higher charging, if they want to go through the full arrest process and present it to us and suggest that maybe it should be a misdemeanor or a felony, then they do that like they do every other kind of criminal case. I don't think that's limbo at all, but I can certainly call on the commissioner if he'd like to comment. I don't know if you'd like to comment or not, sir.
So I think in terms of, again, I'm not going to speak on what the policy is of the DA's office. I think our main focus is to fall in line with what, you know, state statute says that we have the authority to do. One of the purposes of us coming together in these meetings over the past few weeks is looking at areas where, quite frankly, we don't agree, and looking at the areas where we do agree, and sitting down and having collective conversations as to how we can go about taking advantage of the areas where we do agree, looking at how we become closer to getting to an area of agreement in the spaces where we don't agree, and ultimately trying to find the best solution that we can do all together to make this city safer and to hold people accountable for the crimes that are being committed. And so we're going to take a look at, again, part of that conversation had nothing to do with yesterday's incident. This has been an ongoing conversation, but one of the things we are looking at is what can we do better on both sides. What new things, if there is a possibility to embark on some new process that we can do that's going to enhance the ability of our police officers to make arrests, but also looking at what we can do collectively that's going to enhance individuals being prosecuted. And so that's a part of these meetings, these sessions, is to get us in a space where we can find the areas where we can move things forward and hold folks accountable.
All right, Rodrigo Torrejon. Yes, sir. How are you? Well, I can tell you that this defendant has, if I read the record correctly, has convictions in Delaware County. He has convictions in Montgomery County. He has convictions in Bucks County. He has, I believe, convictions in Philadelphia as well. I think it is unfair to look at what a judge did with the information that judge had at the time and expect that judge to have a crystal ball and be able to see that a homicide might come much later. And I also think that part of my job is to respect the independence of the judiciary, which I have probably done far more than any of my predecessors here, frankly, who used to make a regular process of trying to deflect hard questions by beating up on judges. I'm not going to take a position on whether the decisions were perfect or not. Obviously, this outcome is shocking. This outcome is terrible. But I'm not going to take a position or pretend that I can substitute my judgment for the judgment they made at that time with the information they had at that time. Do you have any other questions, sir?
Yeah, going off that, would Tunnell constitute a quote prolific offender based on the criteria that you mentioned?
Based on what I reviewed earlier, which showed not only a number of retail theft arrests in his past, but it also showed some convictions, and I believe also showed a robbery and some other crimes that, are in the nature of theft crimes. There was a burglary in there, if I recall correctly. At least there was a burglary charge in there. I would say, yeah, he does appear to meet that criteria. All right, anything else, sir? All right, I'm going to call on Mr. Cipriano in a moment, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Did I miss any reporter? All right, Mr. Cipriano. Pardon?
If you call on reporters in no particular order, I wonder how I'm always last.
Because you disrupt, sir. I mean, let's be transparent, that's why.
Gotcha. Okay, here's my question. We've been talking about going after prolific offenders. As we've discussed, Tyrone Taylor certainly qualifies according to you. He's had 12 arrests, 11 convictions, 5 for retail theft in the past 3 years. Twice in the past 2 years, on December 12, 2022, and as recently as October 19, 2023, that's just 46 days ago, Mr. Tunnell was hauled into Philadelphia County Court on probation violations for committing new retail thefts in other jurisdictions, and twice he walked out the door. If you're going after prolific offenders, why didn't you put Mr. Tunnell, the prolific offender, in jail?
Well, to state the obvious, I'm not a judge. Those decisions are made by judges. Supervision of probation or parole is done by judges. I believe you're actually talking about a situation where he was, I believe, I'm not sure, so I may be incorrect here, but I think he was convicted in another county and supervision was transferred here. I can't speak to exactly the decision the judge made at that time with the limited information that the judge had, but it would be misleading to suggest that we're the ones who decide whether or not this person is sent to jail. I would point out that at least on my reading of the criminal extract, there was a warrant open at the time this incident occurred. I believe it was probably for a probation violation, and I believe it was a scenario where even though the crime, the supervision was about, occurred in a different county, it was transferred here, meaning the supervision was transferred here, which commonly occurs when a defendant resides in one jurisdiction but was convicted in a different jurisdiction, just in order to try to keep the probation officer in touch. I cannot conclude in a situation where a warrant was issued for his arrest that there was no effort by the probation department, there was no effort by a judge to try to get this person into custody. That's the purpose of that warrant. All right, thank you very much.
Follow-up question, sir. You allowed everyone else to have a follow-up question. Do I get a follow-up question?
All right, yes, sir. Mr. Cipriano.
Thank you, sir. You keep telling us that you prosecute retail theft, but when I talk to prosecutors who've actually prosecuted cases, unlike yourself, when they say they prosecute a case, they mean they want to put somebody in jail, they want to convict somebody or have that guy cop a plea. When you frequently talk about prosecuting retail theft, it sounds like you really mean charging retail theft. So, anyhow, I just wanted to note that.
Is there a question?
Yes.
All right, then I'd like to hear your question because you did ask for a third question and then we got a speech.
The second question. Anyhow, may I proceed?
Sure, 3 is more than 2, but go ahead.
Okay. All right, you keep telling us that you prosecute retail theft. Figures on your own public data dashboard show that comparing the 6 years before you took office with the 6 years that you've been in office, the volume of retail theft cases being charged is down 80%. While Seth Williams prosecutors used to win convictions on 49.3% of their retail theft cases, your conviction rate on retail theft is just 25.5%. While Seth Williams prosecutors used to have 33.6% of their retail cases dismissed or withdrawn, your prosecutors have 65.2% of the retail cases either dismissed or withdrawn. So how can you sit there and tell us that you prosecute retail theft?
Is that the question?
Yeah.
Sir, did you look at the arrests? Did you look at the number of arrests that can be made? Because you understand that we can't actually prosecute a case where there hasn't been an arrest. Did you look at the fact that there is a, excuse me, I'm going to finish answering your question, sir. Did you look at the fact that did you look at the fact that the police-assisted diversion program exists for the purpose of the police deciding which offenders are the proper ones to divert, and that has an effect on the flow of cases? I suggest that you look a little closer. Thank you, sir.